Several weeks ago, I told Colin I was working on this talk. And I said, Colin, I really want to read some poetry. He's like, no, don't do that. We want you to talk more. I'm like, Colin, poetry is my comfort zone. It's like, no, this is more of a speech type of deal. So I work really hard getting ready for the speech. My poor husband has heard it so many times. And I'm getting ready to come down here, and Colin's like, well, you know what? You can read poetry if you want to. Thanks for that, Colin. But
I'm just trying to make you comfortable.
Well, let's start it out this way then, and then I'll get to the speech. But let's start it out with one. They're wonderful now, but when I told them I was gay, my mother demanded God's reasons for striking her grandchild bare dead. Manly loins, fertile and righteous, impeded by my barren inclinations. Her last straight hope zooming past as she traveled the stages of grief from the passenger seat. My future was a tornado-ravaged town with collapsed houses on the bodies of grandsons and granddaughters, crumpled white picket fences wrapped around the dead who looked like Tom Hanks in Philadelphia. My father, he took the proactive approach and said, if I tried, I could find a butch woman with a mustache or a petite little thing, small-chested like a freshman. He could coach me around the bases. Close your eyes, son, and you'll never know. My grandpa spoke of it in the hushed tones of a repressed war memory. I was Hitler. I was Mussolini. I was Tojo and Kono. He pictured me in grotesque scenes with fat men and little boys, pink triangles lost on his sensibilities. I was Hiroshima aftermath to his peacetime America, Pacific Rim foreign on toes of farm kids strong, the flag at the post office flying half-mast while Taps played solemn and survivors wept. My grandmother, she didn't change at all, stringing me out with sugar and buttercream together until I saw visions of her worshipped in another time, a one-named siren in a bar, surrounded by my people, dirty jokes and colored hair. God, we would have loved her. I think that homosexuality is genetic, a decadent recipe passed down to diabetic queens of the family. I never went hungry. Thank you, Grandma. And I still wonder what he'd say, my brother, who explained biology with pornographic magazines, who had arranged my G.I. Joes in sexual positions, who knew before anyone but left before I could truly make my appearance. When we'd play hide and seek as children, I'd always end up in the closet. He would help me out gently. I think it was a sign. Now, that poem is called Flawed Families in Biblical Times, and it's the centerpiece of my book, My Life as Adam. And I like to start events like this with a poem like that. Number one, to show you, before I'm a publisher, I'm a poet. And secondly, because it ends with a reference to my brother who died when I was young. And the press is named after him in a way, Sibling Rivalry Press, because I was always sort of competing with his ghost or his memory as I grew up. And as I got older, that became easier to deal with. And I felt like I was about to do something special with this company, and I wanted him to be a part of it. That's where the name Sibling Rivalry Press comes from. And, you know, I'm here, though, to talk more about publishing. And in particular, the things I've learned over the last year. It's only been a year. And some of these lessons are pretty obvious, but they've really hit home. So I want to share them with you in the context of how I started the press and people that I met, and just really what I've learned throughout this process. And the first lesson that I've learned is be open to opportunities in unexpected forms. My opportunity came in the form of a man who looked like Truman Capote but lived like Harper Lee. John Staley was this larger-than-life guy. He was a robust recluse. That's how I like to describe him. And he was the editor of a quarterly journal called Ganymede, Gay Men's Culture from New York. And John and I became friends in late 2008 when he accepted some of my work for publication. And our friendship was serendipitous. There was nobody better to teach me the ins and outs of the gay literary world than John. He knew everyone and claimed to have dined with or slept with most of them. Now, it wasn't long into our correspondence that he started trying to convince me to go the route of self-publishing. Because that's how he put out his journal, through Lulu. And he said, "Bryan, your stuff's good. You really should put out a book." And I wanted to put out a book, but not like that. My ego didn't like that idea. I heard self-publishing. I thought of the stigmas associated with that. I wanted a reputable company to put me out. I wanted the recognition. I wanted the validation. I wanted that big advance. Who was I kidding with that? But he kept on though. He said, publish yourself, and you'll control everything. You'll control the marketing. You'll control the cover art. You'll keep it in print as long as you want. You'll call the shots. And eventually, he chipped away at my resistance, and I started to listen. And mostly because I had this manuscript of poems that I had started to circulate, and I was really impatient, and I didn't like writing a $25 check to this contest and paying that reading fee. And I knew if I didn't move forward, I would be stuck with these poems for at least another year or two, and I really wanted to get beyond them. These are the poems of my youth, and I wanted to grow into a man. I couldn't do that until I published the book. So I agreed and hired John and paid him a little bit of money, and so we went to work on what would become my book, My Life as Adam. And on his advice, we signed me up to launch the book at the Rainbow Book Fair in New York, which is touted as the largest LGBT book event in the world. I don't know if that's true, but for an Arkansas boy, man, it sure seemed like it. So I flew to New York and launched the book, and it was a tremendous success. And I can't play the Southern accent card here, but when you go up to New York, you talk with your Southern accent, they will just eat you alive. And that really played a part in the launch being very successful. But John was not there to see it. And when I returned home, I had a message waiting for me. John was apologizing for missing it, said he'd been sick, and he assured me that I'd be back to New York and he'd see me then. So after all, I was a published author now, and it felt like the truth. So I went on and went to work publicizing My Life as Adam, and John went back to working on Ganymede, which he designed and put together by himself from his tiny apartment in New York. And I would hear from him from time to time. I heard from him in mid-April. He sent me galleys of upcoming issue. There was a kid named Digby Mackworth Dolben, from the 1860s, a young English poet, and he was very proud he was going to publish his work in Ganymede. And that was the cool thing about John. He'd say, "Look who I discovered." He was really big on bringing people into the spotlight who we might not know otherwise, or giving people opportunities who hadn't had those opportunities before. And that was that email. That was the last time I heard from John. The emails went silent. And eventually, my emails to him came back undeliverable. And it was Memorial Day weekend, 2008.